It's fantastic to have so many different colleagues from right across Tower Hamlets and Hackney joining us this afternoon.
Where is the poll again? Because I cannot see it anywhere.
Should have popped up on your screen. What we'll do is we'll close that in the next 30 seconds, and then Anissa will relaunch it for those colleagues who may have joined afterwards, just to make sure that everyone's got that second opportunity to do that. Thanks, Sophia.
Thank you.
There should be a poll button in the bottom of your screen, if you can see that.
Okay, a couple of messages from colleagues about their cameras not working. That's okay. It's lovely to see as many faces as I can this afternoon and get a sense of people being in the same room together. So a very warm welcome to colleagues across Tower Hamlets and Hackney. It's lovely to have you joining us this afternoon as we start the first year of the East London Teaching School Hub Early Career Framework Programme. I'm going to allow Ruth to introduce herself and tell you a little bit more about East London Teaching School Hub, who we are and how we work. Thanks, Ruth.
Thanks, Tessa. Hello, everyone. I hope you had a good summer and it's great to see so many of you here today. So my name's Ruth Smith. I'm the Director of East London Teaching School Hub, and I'm going to just spend a few moments with you explaining a little bit more again of who we are and how we all work together to provide you with your early career teacher professional development programme. On the screen is the quote that kind of encapsulates really why we're here. So we firmly believe together we change lives by providing the highest quality teacher development opportunities. The early career framework has been designed to make sure that you in your early stages of your career have access to the best available evidence to help you meet the needs of all learners in your classroom. And we really do believe that the quality of teaching has the greatest impact on the people that we work with. And that's why we're in this arena to help work with you. Now, a little bit more about East London Teaching School Hub. The way we operate is under 3 core values. And Tessa will share those with you. So there are 87 teaching school hubs in the country. East London Teaching School Hub is responsible for all schools, all state schools in Hackney and Tower Hamlets. And we also have colleagues working with us from other neighbouring boroughs. And each teaching school hub has its own geographical patch. And the way that we work is we make sure that we work with all the kind of skill sets and all the expertise across our region to make sure that the quality of the professional development that you receive is the highest quality, because we believe in collegiality, we believe in the strength of working in partnership. And you'll see that we're really keen to bring you together as early career teachers and mentors to make sure that you can benefit from that network of expertise as well, outside of your own school and across the region. We believe in inclusion, as I'm sure you do, as educators in inner city London. We really do want to make sure that every child is included in their learning and in their teaching experience, and so that they can really benefit from all the expertise that they have access to. And finally, we operate in the spirit of transparency. We really want to make sure that people understand how things are working. We want to make sure that knowledge moves around the locality in a way that everyone can benefit from it. And also, you will have lots of emails from us, occasionally for East London Teaching School Hub, and we're here to help. Sometimes we won't know the answer, but we'll do our best to find out. But I'm going to talk a little bit later about the lines of communication in a moment. So they're the 3 values that sit beneath how we work. But as I've said, we're a hub. Across our region, there are a number of schools, a number of teachers, a number of leaders who have huge amounts of expertise and knowledge to bring to the table. And so our role really is very much about connecting all of those people together so that you can benefit from the best quality professional development and in turn contribute to that network of peer support. If we move on to the next slide, just to give you a sense of the scale of the network that you are now engaged in. So as primary practitioners, the way that we operate as East London Teaching School Hub is we have 5 local partners and their logos are on the screen there. So we have Letter, HTSA, Hackney Education, Primary Advantage work with them, and then THEP. And each of you individually will be part of one of those local providers, local partners. And then what we do is we work with those local partner leads to coordinate the provision for primary and secondary across our region. Within all of those local partnerships, we've got over 20 school leader facilitators, again, drawing on the expertise of different phase and settings in our region. We're working with 126 schools. And now that we have 2 years worth of early career teachers and their mentors working with us, we have over 380 mentors and over 490 ECTs. So by working with us, East London Teaching School Hub and our local partners, you are connected to that huge wealth of professional expertise, as I keep saying, and mentoringship in lots of different ways and peer learning. And again, those spirits, collegiality, inclusion and transparency sit under that. So we appreciate it might be a bit confusing because there's lots of different kind of logos and names and providers in the way that we operate. So just for a bit of clarity, if you've got questions, we just wanted to kind of clarify who to talk to at what point. So first of all, your main line of communication, if you've got any questions, is between mentor and ECT. So the conversations that you have together about taking the early career framework and implementing it and contextualizing it to your own real life scenario. That's sort of the first level. The second stage is your induction tutor. So in your school, you will have an induction tutor and their responsibility is the statutory compliance in a way. They're responsible for making sure that you have your entitlement to the early career framework and also to make sure that your induction is in line with the assessment processes. They hold all the information you require around your own early career framework progress. And as a mentor as well, that's important. So they're your first port of call. Then UCL, Institute of Education, they are the lead providers that we're working with. They too can help you with questions around UCL Extend, which I know is a bugbear for many about logging on. They organise the digital learning platform. They also can provide support around how to access and navigate the learning online. And your induction tutor has a key role in helping you with that as well. Then it's your local cluster and local partner facilitators. So you will be part of a group of local primary mentors or early career teachers, and your cluster will belong to one of those local partners. So for example, if you're in THEP, if you have any questions, if your induction tutor has any questions, they should be directed to THEP, Alison, who will help in the first instance, and your local partner facilitator as well. And then if all else fails, Alison or your local partner will get in contact with us because we sit at the centre of sort of central organisation, but we really value the strength in you being part of a local cluster. So that's the kind of line of communication that you should follow. And that's how we very loosely fit together. So I hope that helps clear things up a little bit. So that's a little bit about East London, how we work together. And I'm going to hand back to Tessa, who's going to focus on the learning intentions for today.
Thank you, Ruth. And really just to emphasise there, the kind of partnership work that goes on with our local partners in terms of those key contacts. We've worked very closely together, but we're always happy to help at the hub too. And we can remind you who your local partner is and get you connected and help you to make that contact too. I'm Tessa Blair, I'm the Deputy Director of East London Teaching School Hub, and I work on the ECF programme. I also work on our appropriate body services and work on our ITT provision as well. And I'll talk a little bit about how those things fit together in a little bit more detail first. In terms of today's session, we really want to just introduce our partnership, and we've started to do that already, and there'll be further opportunities later on in the session for you to meet those local cluster leaders that we talked about, find out a little bit more about your particular individual sessions that you'll be attending, and ask questions in those smaller groups. What I'm hoping to do in the next 20 minutes or so is give you a little bit more information about how the programme will be organised this year. Some of this will be a kind of recap from the asynchronous material that you've engaged with from UCL. So kind of a quick whistle-stop tour through some of the key messages, but most of it will be about the local sessions and how they're organised. And I'm going to share some practical guidance on how to manage the programme and support you in your next steps, because I recognise it can be really challenging at the beginning of your career. You're negotiating a lot of different information, lots of different people, lots of new policies and practices coming through, lots of names to get your head around. So just help you to think about some immediate next steps that you might take to ensure support. Because what you're trying to do is complex. Learning to teach has been described by colleagues at Rebecca Allen and Sam Sims, they're professors at UCL, as like learning to cha-cha on a ship full of mouldy fruit. And I felt this was a very kind of strange metaphor I had to get my head around. And that's quite a distracting GIF and probably a little bit outdated now. So let's try and break down this metaphor. What are they talking about? Learning to cha-cha on a ship full of mouldy fruit. Well, they take the idea that learning to teach is like learning to dance. And David Berliner, a researcher in America, described learning to teach as like learning to cha-cha. At first, and you may remember this from your initial teacher education, you had to practice moves very, very deliberately. You may have had to think very carefully and very effortfully about, you know, where to stand in the classroom, how to use your voice, how to hand out resources and manage transitions, okay? And as you start in a new context, you may be having to think about these things very, very carefully again. So you're practicing very deliberately, you're practicing discrete moves, but over time, you'll become more fluent in them. You may be able to move beyond the kind of routines that you've rehearsed and become a little bit more creative in how you approach them, okay? You might have a different rhythm on a Friday afternoon than the one you do on a Monday morning. And that's because you'll become more expert. So experts tend to be more creative, more fluent in the way they do things. Traditionally, initial teacher education has been a bit front-loaded. So you've engage with a very intense program of learning in your initial teacher education, and then ECTs previously, when they were NQTs, were sent into schools, you got your first job, and for many ECTs, it was a case of sink or swim. You either thrived in fantastic learning cultures within a school, or unfortunately for too many people, they found it very challenging, and their support into the career wasn't always managed very well. What they found was that they've been loaded up, for their long journey of becoming a teacher, their long career, with fruit, but actually by the time they needed it, it had gotten mouldy. They couldn't really connect with the materials, the ideas that were shared with them in their initial teacher education. So all those resources weren't nourishing them and sustaining them. So the early career framework is really around supporting a smoother and more sustainable transition into the career, because we hope that you will love working in Tower Hamlets and Hackney, and you'll really thrive and thrive in this career, and it'll become one that you want to stay in for many a year, and really work with our young people and improve their lives. So the early career framework, as I'm sure you know, it's really fundamental to the programme, is this 2-year entitlement. It's a programme of development, and it's mapped using these learn that and learn how to statements. And you'll see these references to learn that and learn how to throughout the 2-year programme. Very deliberately, it draws on research evidence, and very deliberately it follows some of the work you've done in your initial teacher education. So your initial teacher education will have been underpinned by a core content framework, and there are overlaps in this, okay, and that's deliberate. And that's because the DFE believe that teacher education should be a continuous one. So they like to describe this golden thread from initial teacher education through your early career development, and then offering the national professional qualification, so that if you choose to continue in your profession, you may want to go on to do national professional qualifications in leading teachers, leading teaching, or leading teacher development, or perhaps headship, or even executive headship. Okay, so this pathway through right from the very early first steps as a teacher, all the way through to being an executive head of a multiple schools. Okay, so there's the idea of continuity. The early career framework has a range of different resources and activities, and I think that's why it can be hard to navigate, because it's very rich in the different activities you'll draw on. You'll have regular self-study on UCL Extend. You'll have those weekly mentor meetings in school, and they'll be structured using the resources from UCL Extend. And then you'll have half-termly in-person sessions organised locally, and half-termly online learning communities as well. So there's lots of different parts of this full programme. UCL Extend does host the main content, and hopefully most of you have now been able to gain access to that. If your induction tutor registered you in the summer and in the beginning of the term, you should now have UCL Extend access. Now, I'm aware from our inboxes that some of you are finding it hard to gain access to UCL Extend. So I've got some quick tips for you on how to do that. So my first quick tip is, if you think you don't have UCL Extend access, you probably do, okay? Many emails have been sent, have gone into junk boxes, or they may have gone to email accounts that aren't accurate, so email accounts that you're not using anymore. One thing you can do straight away is to check the password reset option. So if you go onto the UCL Extend website and you choose the login option and reset password, if you put in your school email address, you should get the option to reset your password. Okay, maybe that you've missed that initial information about your login details. If you don't receive an email back, then the best person to talk to is your induction tutor. Your access to UCL Extend is determined by the registration that your induction tutor did on a DFE online platform. If they entered an email address that is your personal email address, for example, or perhaps an email address from an earlier profession or an early career or initial teacher education, perhaps one that was on an application form to the school, that is the email address that your UCL Extend account will be linked to. Also, it's really worth just asking the induction tutor to check that they typed in the registration correctly, because unfortunately many of our email address registrations had typos in them last year. Okay, so just double check. It's really worth checking what your induction tutor has registered. They can do that by looking directly on the DFE online service that they registered you on. And if they have made a mistake, they can make the change on the DFE online service directly. Okay, that will then filter through to UCL Extend. We'd ask you to keep us informed if you do notice that there needs to be a change, because we can make sure that UCL are anticipating that, and that can help to speed things up. So if you or your induction tutor are facing issues around registration for UCL Extend, or ensuring the right information is on the DFE online service, do keep us in touch. And there's our email address at the bottom there. You can see, so ECF@ is the best email for any help around registration. The main points of contact we'll have with you are these facilitated sessions, and we've mentioned that they are both in person every half term, and that will tend to be at the beginning of each half term and each term, and then online learning communities, and they'll tend to be towards the end of each half term. So a range of different ways to engage with us. And last year, people really absolutely loved them. I had the real pleasure of visiting clusters right across Tower Hamlets and Hackney, and it was such, it was fantastic to see what the ECTs were gaining from those sessions, opportunities to learn from other schools, to share their experiences, and in some cases just to take, a couple of hours out of a busy school life and have some time to think about your own professional development. So I hope those sessions will be as valuable for you this year as they were last year for our ECTs. Couple of bits of guidance around if you're unable to attend a session. We've designed the programme very much so that there are a range of different sessions on different days. So if you know you can't attend a session that you've been invited to already, the best thing to do is contact your local cluster leader, and they may be able to offer you advice on alternative sessions. So some of our local leaders offer 2 clusters, for example, on different days. We can also direct you to other partners sessions, even secondary sessions, which may not be particularly phase specific, but at least allow you to attend an in-person session. There are some recorded alternatives, but we always recommend that the in-person sessions are far more engaging and interesting. If you miss a session, your local cluster leader will advise you on how to catch up or other alternative sessions that you can arrive. The programme is funded and we do need to track engagement. So schools receive funding for the programme for your engagement. And obviously the programme is also funded in terms of the facilitators' work. If you miss a session, if you keep missing sessions or fail to catch up on the sessions as advised, the hub will contact yourself, but also your mentor and your induction tutor, because your induction tutor will be needing to check that you're engaging fully with an ECF-based programme as part of your statutory assessment. Okay, so it's really important that you're proactive in thinking about whether you can attend, you access alternative sessions, but also catch up where needed. So where should you be? All this talk of catch up and missed sessions, etc. What you might be wondering, what have I missed already? What should I be doing? So before you came to today, we asked that you explored UCL Extend and the handbook, and I hope some of you had the opportunity to do that. We also asked you to watch the asynchronous video recording from UCL. Strongly recommend that because I think it's got some really important key messages. If you're wondering where the link is for asynchronous video, you can check your welcome emails and your invites. There were reminders on those of that link. Hopefully now you've also started to explore the Module 1 resources. Each module there's a familiar kind of rhythm to it in terms of the pattern of it, but each of them also focuses on different content. And there are some key documents on UCL Extend that can really help you to make sense of those modules. I think it can be quite tempting to think of it in a kind of week by week basis and just sort of click on the week that you're on and do the materials. But it's really helpful just to step back and think about the bigger picture of what you're trying to achieve in the module, because then that helps you with your mentor to identify where you need to be prioritizing and focusing on your time, which bits might be less appropriate for you. So some key documents that are helpful: the module summary guide, the module audit, and the module tracker and learning log. And I'll show you those now. So the module summary guide, there's a picture there of this unit's 1, this module's 1, is a week by week overview of the key activities that you'll be doing, but also your mentor will be doing with you in the meetings. It gives you that side by side picture. And I think it's really important to think about those 2 activities as a pair. Often you'll be doing things in your self-study to prepare for your mentor meeting. Okay, so getting into a rhythm of, when your self-study is, allocating some time on your timetable for that in advance of your mentor meeting will really help you. I'm going to take a moment to show you where to find these documents on UCL Extend. So bear with me while we get that up. Okay, so you'll be in cohort 2 of UCL Extend, and your program will look something like this. These buttons here are the main ways into your modules. So modules 1 to 5, that covers the modules in year 1 of the program, and modules 6 to 9, those in year 2. So we're going to click into modules 1 to 5. It's always quite a helpful reminder here on the right-hand side of the module and the week that you'll probably be in. Okay, so if you start to lose count of those weeks, we're in week 2 now, for example. Once we've clicked into modules 1 to 5, we can see all the different modules tabs pop up here. And so I'm going into module 1. And I can see now those weeks pop up. So this is a 7-week unit all the way up to half term. But let's look at what there is here. In this module 1 open page, the welcome page, we've got some guidance for all the different roles of people who are involved. You won't see the facilitator's information or the mentor's information, but you will have the ECT guidance there. Below that is where you'll find your Module 1 summary guide. You'll find the early career framework standards that I mentioned. So these will explain how the work you're doing this half term references the early career framework. And you'll find your progress tracker and learning log. Okay, those 3 documents I mentioned. So these 3 really important documents, your summary guide, your tracker and learning log, can sometimes feel a bit hidden at the bottom because you might go straight into your guidance for ECTs. Within the guidance for ECTs, you've got them again there. So you've got your summary guide and your progress tracker and learning log there as well. And I'll show you what that looks like in a moment. If I go back to Module 1, I can then get back into my different week sections there as well. Okay, so week 1 opens up the resources I need for week 1. So let's have a look at those in a little bit more detail. I've shared with you the module summary guide and the kind of some of the benefits of that. What does that tell us about what we should have done so far? Well, last week was week 1. Hopefully you had a mentor meeting, and the focus for that should have been your module audit. Now, this is a really, really nice opportunity for you to identify your strengths and areas of development in relation to the module that you're doing. And it's key, I think, that you start with this, because this is about really tailoring the programme and making it meaningful for you. Through this process, you can identify, are there particular aspects you need to focus on and prioritise your time around, and which bits you may have less time for, spend less time on. Okay, so when you're working on this with your mentor, you may want to use the module summary guide as well to identify which week's worth of content are going to be really vital for you. So that in the event that you did need to miss a session, you would know which ones to kind of prioritize. Okay, this week you are engaging in a mentor meeting again. You've also got some self-directed study material. The guidance is very much to spend an hour on your self-directed study, and that comes within your 10% allocated time on your timetable for ECT learning. Each session will have a range of different elements. In this session, week 2, it suggests that you might analyse some school policies and have a look at values and cultures around the school. You might do some scripting around a routine in the classroom. You might discuss with a colleague and also observe the first 5 minutes of a lesson. And it can feel a bit like, well, I don't know how I'm going to do all of that within an hour. Okay. They are all set out with recommended timings. But again, I would advise that you read through them, skim and scan it briefly first. And again, with your mentor, identify the key things that you may want to focus on. So you may really want to observe a colleague, and it does suggest just 5-minute observation. You may do 2 of those and not do the scripting activity, for example. Okay, you can choose the activities and resources and bits that you think are most helpful to engage with. Spend an hour each week on these activities. Okay, the other thing to notice, an improvement from this year, is there's always a research and practice summary. This year, those can be listened to. So this week's research and practice summary, for example, gives various different case studies and scenarios, some guidance around setting up some routines. That can be listened to on your phone, for example, rather than as a reading activity. Okay, so there's different ways to engage with these resources. But we do ask that you do engage with them. So you'll notice at the end of each self-study and at the end of each mentor meeting, there's the button that says, click to show your engagement. So to show I've completed this session. So let's have a little look at what that looks like on UCL Extend. So I'm going to week 2, which is where we are now. And I'm looking at my self-directed session material. There's always the learning intentions. I've got my research and practice summary that I can listen to or read. I've got a range of different activities, reviewing my experiences analysing and discussing, observing a colleague, scripting some routines, and thinking then about my next steps. And at the bottom there, I'm completing my session. Okay, so after you've spent that hour engaged in that. Really important message at this stage. We're asking for engagement, but it's important to know that the ECF programme is not assessed. Okay, so UCL or East London Teaching School Hub will never ask you to submit an audit, will never ask you to share your learning log with us, never ask you to send in your notes. Okay, you will show your engagement through UCL Extend and through your attendance at the sessions we have. Your assessment will always be led by your induction tutor in school, who will work alongside an appropriate body. So in this area, the appropriate body might be Tower Hamlets, Hackney Education, or East London Teaching School Hub. And you'll need to find out from your induction tutor who your appropriate body is. They will manage the assessment. So they will manage the progress reviews and assessments that you have this year. That will not be part of this programme, which is not assessed. So just to reiterate the kind of different roles we have in terms of the programme. So in terms of your ECF-based programme of learning, that's largely within school going to be a relationship between you and your mentor working in school. And your induction tutor will support you and your mentor to engage in that ECF-based programme of learning. In terms of the assessment and recommendation of QTS, that will be a relationship largely between you and your induction tutor. They're the person that takes the responsibility for that, and they will work alongside the head and the appropriate body that your school has chosen. Okay, that separation of mentor and induction tutor from learning and assessment is a key part of the statutory guidance. Okay. So I've talked about it not being assessed, and I've talked about there being some flexibility. But if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed by the kind of range of different activities you might engage with, I think the progress tracker can be helpful to give you that at a glance sense of the types of things that you have the opportunity to engage with and that you're encouraged to engage with. So for each week, you can see the different types of activities that you will engage with and when the programme suggests you engage with them. So within week 1, we're engaging in our beginning of module audit. That will be the same every half term. You've got your self-directed study sessions. You've got 4 of those this half term, and they may be in weeks 2, 3, 5, and 6. If that slips by a week and they happen to be a week later, that's not a problem. Just think about how they tie in with your mentor meetings because they're designed to go together. Okay, you've got 4 hours worth of self-directed study over this half term. You should be having mentor meetings each week. And as I said, they're very much tied into the self-directed study. So thinking about how you're preparing for these sort of paired activities. You've got your online learning community that will tend to be at the end of each half term. So that's the end of this half term. And you've got your ECT in-person sessions. So it looks like this week you should be having one of those. We've decided this time to make that an online welcome session, okay, because we recognise you're out again really soon in your clusters for that in-person session. Okay, so in a couple of weeks' time, you'll be meeting in your in-person cluster sessions. At the end of every module, we'll ask you to return to the module audit and think about your learning and your progress. And we'll also ask you to give us some feedback on your learning and experiences this year. And that information is shared with your local partners. We read it at the hub, and it's also shared with UCL. So it gives all of us a really good sense of your learning and experience this year. I know I've emphasized a lot of lots of things to do, but one of the things I really want to emphasize too is the importance of your well-being in all of this. Okay, so the program is there to support you to be a fantastic teacher and to really thrive in this career, thrive in your career. And UCL and ourselves have thought carefully about how to support you in this. So there is a wellbeing charter that's available on UCL Extend. There's a couple of pointers here on the slides, around the way the programme is designed to support you to engage in and to really thrive. So things like the opportunity to listen to the practice summaries, remembering that all the resources are available. So, you know, if week 2 is not working for you, it's not what you need now, and you need to get on to week 4 because actually you need to be thinking about holding a parent conversation and want some guidance on that, you can skip ahead and look at those materials at the point you need them. I've talked about things being online. I've talked about showing your engagement online, but there are also download options. So if you prefer to have PDFs, if you prefer to print things out, put them in folders, those options are available too. Okay, and I'll let you read those through now. In a moment, we're going to move into our local partner breakout groups, and you'll have a chance to ask questions and meet each other and think about who you're going to be working with in those in-person sessions. I'd ask too that you take a minute now to think about any questions you have for your local partner lead and any questions you have for the hub. Okay, so let's think about those next steps. Think about the questions that we haven't been able to answer today, and who's the best person to answer them. Is it your mentor, your induction tutor? Is it the local partner, or is it the hub? My real advice for you at this stage is to try and establish that rhythm for your self-study and mentor meeting, because that's the heart of your activity within school. You'll need to talk to your mentor about that. If you haven't already watched the asynchronous video, please do so. Okay, so we're going to move now into our local partner breakouts, and I'll ask Anissa to open up those breakout groups. Hopefully, you'll know which local partner you're working with, whether it's LETTA, HTSA, Hackney Education, Primary Advantage, or THEP, and you'll be able to move into those groups and meet your colleagues. If you're not sure which local partner you're working with, don't worry, just stay in the main room and we'll be able to help allocate you. Are those groups coming up now?
Tessa, can I say at this point to THEP, if they just know it's Alison's group, if they've had emails from Alison, that means it's THEP.
Thank you very much, Alison, that's helpful. And I can see your colleague Louise here as well.
Yes.
That's great. Hi, Louise. How are we getting on, Anissa?
Sorry, what did you say?
Are we able to open the breakout groups, Anissa?
Yeah, they're open.
Fantastic. Thank you. In terms of getting into the breakout groups, hopefully you've had options have popped up for you. I can see lots of you are going off now. If that's not working for you, you should see a button at the bottom of your screen with a breakout option, and you can choose the particular group you want to go in. Or you can press more breakout groups and choose the group. And if you're still not sure, then myself and colleagues will try and get you into the right groups in a moment. Let's stop the recording.